Hey man, check it out. Rest in peace, Jordan Neely.
Demands for criminal charges are growing tonight after a New York Subway confrontation turned deadly. We should warn you. The video you're about to see is disturbing.
I'm glad that they're listing this as a homicide, because at first they're sitting up here commending the dude as a hero. If you don't know yet, man, Jordan Neely was a resident inside of New York City. Yes, I think that they're saying that he was homeless or he had some type of mental issues. He was known in the community for dancing, and I think he also was known for having some of his outbursts. Another citizen decided to take it into his own hands to try to restrain Neely and ended up choking him out for 15 minutes. And unfortunately, Jordan Neely is now passed away. They let the man go, didn't even arrest him, and a lot of people were calling him a hero when it was a flat-out murder. It was caught on camera. The man was described to be defending other people for Jordan Neely harassing people, whatever he was doing. But at the end of the day, harassment or not, man, the answer to this shouldn't have been death, and it especially shouldn't have been death from somebody who wasn't even an authority.
Tonight, there is growing pressure on the Manhattan District Attorney to bring criminal charges after a man was choked to death on the subway Monday.
He could not breathe.
Right. Jordan Neely ended up on the floor of the train in a headlock after police say an argument turned into a violent confrontation. When it was over, Neely was unconscious. EMS attempts to revive.
Now, at this point of what you've seen inside of the video, I'm not going to go back because we see disturbing images already. Man, that's not a man harassing somebody. That's a man fighting for his own life. And as a person who, you know what I mean, is administrating any type of chokehold, you should, for one, know how deadly a chokehold can be, and for two, how long a person's body could take during the chokehold. When you see that a person is not a threat anymore and you're trying to be quote unquote heroic, or you're trying to quote unquote defend somebody, okay, well, as soon as that person's not a threat, you need to, you know what I mean, disengage, relax.
The medical examiner ruled his death a homicide by chokehold. So far, There are no criminal charges.
Bullshit.
The 24-year-old who held Neely in a headlock was taken into custody and then released, according to police. The video obtained by...
And bros that's holding his hands is just as wrong as him, bro. You know what I mean? You literally keeping this. That is scary as hell, bro. I can't imagine how scary that is, bro. And what Jordan was feeling before he died, man. Like, not being able to use your hands to try to get yourself out of it. You can't even fight. All he could do, he just sat there and just died, bro.
NBC New York shows Neely in a chokehold for nearly 3 minutes. The witness who took it says Neely got on the subway and was acting aggressively, telling riders he was hungry, he was thirsty, that he didn't care about anything. He didn't care about going to jail. He didn't care that he gets a big life sentence. Today, New York's governor called the chokehold a, quote, extreme response.
There have to be consequences, and so we'll see how this unfolds, but his family deserves justice.
Thank you. Not even just the family, the community, bro. Yes, okay, he was having a bad day, bro. Okay, whatever. He was going around and he was making outbursts and everything like that. Was he choking somebody though? Let's answer the question right there. Was he choking somebody? Did he have somebody in a restraint? Why did he have to die? Why did he have to die? I'm okay if broing him, but I'm okay if dude would have walked up and slapped the shit out of him. I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Let it be a fair one. Let them be able to get their ones up or something like that. Why did you have to kill him, bro? Answer me that. Why did you have to kill him? Bros, they said the first time that it was a video, they said that he choked him out for over 15 minutes. This one's saying 3 minutes. Either way, 3 and 15 minutes, those are the lines where somebody could die. You know what I mean? If you're choking somebody out and they pass out, a person who's unconscious and breathing has 3 minutes to be resuscitated. If you don't resuscitate somebody in 3 minutes when they're suffocating, then they'll die. This man should have known that, especially since he's knowledgeable enough to put somebody inside of a chokehold, bro. This is crazy.
To discuss is former New York prosecutor and civil rights attorney Charles Coleman. Charles, there have notably been no arrests, and many people out there want to know why. What's your take?
Simone, I think the first thing that we have to understand in having a conversation about Mr. Neely in this case is that the perception of New York City is that we are a very progressive city that does not have issues regarding class and race. And that perception cannot be further from the truth.
Thank you.
This is a city where this has happened repeatedly. And if we think about violence against Black people, we have unfortunately been at the epicenter of this, whether it's law enforcement or vigilante justice. You can think about what it was with Eric Garner. You can think about Amadou Diallo. You can think about Sean Bell. And that's just on the police side. But we've actually seen this sort of violence in the subway before. I want to remind viewers of a case relating to Bernard Getz, which occurred way back in the 80s, some years ago, where a white man shot a teenager on the train because he felt threatened. This sort of thing happens in New York because we have issues of class and race that have not been dealt with and that are fault lines in our society. And the fact that we have had such a split among public officials in terms of how they've addressed this is, quite frankly, because it shines a light on some of the ills that take place in New York City around affordable housing, around inadequate mental health services. And that's why we have this cauldron of different responses that has boiled to the surface around his death.
See, he said this in such a great way, but he also said it in such an intelligent way that it might go over some people's heads. Basically, class and race. You know what I mean? You come to these inner cities, and I'm gonna expand his thought with New York, Oakland, San Francisco, or any other city that has an intense amount of poverty rate. But the funny part is, California and New York are very much identical. They're also identical in the classes of homelessness. California and New York has an intense amount of homelessness. California and New York have an intense amounts of gentrification. Where am I going with this? The people who are moving into these communities don't know nothing about the community. Who Jordan Neely was somebody that was a part of the community. Whether he was obnoxious or not, mentally unstable or not, whether he was homeless or not, he was a part of that community. People knew him for his talents. He was a dancer. He was able to act and look like Michael Jackson. You don't think that that's talent? Well, you do it, and you do it with a good job. The people who are not from these communities that move to these communities need to understand something. You need to understand that you may not be used to it, but a whole lot of other people are. Even the police, the people who have the authority to de-escalate these situations are used to these people. It's a little bit rah here, rah here. Eventually Joe goes about his way. And the cop has to do with that, you feel me, every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Get what I'm saying? It's a routine because why? They're a part of this community. You come and you're not from this community and you freak out. Well, maybe your ass should have did a little bit more research on the community before you decided to move in. And if you're scared of these type of people, these type of behaviors, if you're unfamiliar with it, maybe you should reconsider moving into the community. This is definitely much a class differences issue, and that's why this happened, because it was a misunderstanding. Jordan Neely was misunderstood, and for some odd reason, the guy thought that killing him was just going to be the answer, or maybe he was so in control of his own self. We're spotlighting the mental health to be on Jordan. The guy who killed him needs to have a mental health evaluation. I heard that he was a Marine. You're supposed to be trained. You're supposed to know when to de-escalate yourself. You're sitting up here trying to defend. You're not realizing that the person that you're offending other people against, the person that's so bad, still is a human with a life. And his life still mattered.
Charles, you brought up the case from the 80s, and some legal experts are now saying about this particular case that it could get complicated for some of those same reasons if passengers claim they felt threatened. And I'm going to put quotes around threatened because this is something we often hear, or passengers claim that they needed to act in self-defense.
This is bullshit.
Can you just unpack this for us? And then also weigh in on why use a chokehold? I've watched this video now a number of times, and Mr. Neely was strangled to death on that train.
Why use a chokehold? You know what I mean? Why? I know numerous ways to restrain somebody. I mean, you could put him in a half Nelson, put him in a full Nelson, put him in a figure four leg lock. You know what I mean? Put him in an ankle lock. You know what I mean? A broken ankle's better than a dead body, if you ask me. Put him in a Kimura, twist their arm up or something like that. There's plenty of different ways to restrain somebody than to choke them to death.
Well, unfortunately, Simone, you cannot divorce the notion of being threatened or the language of being threatened from the weaponization of race in a case like this. Because at the end of the day, we have seen blackness weaponized in such a way that excuses or raises the level of threat that people are allowed to say they have when they are dealing with someone who is a black person versus when they are not. And so we've seen this movie before, and unfortunately, we know how it is. That is, in many people's minds, going to excuse used in action or response of violence. And I think overall, we have become desensitized to the notion of vigilante justice in the name of self-defense. For the past few weeks, we've been talking about people who have literally been using firearms, other deadly force in terms of defending themselves or in their belief because they felt threatened, responding to these threats in a lethal manner. In this case, the person who is the assailant, the 24-year-old former Marine, is someone who chose a lethal means with his hands and his training to enact vigilante justice because he felt threatened. I am not of the belief that there was no other way to de-escalate this situation or deal with this conflict, even if you felt like you were threatened, than to exercise the deadly means of a chokehold. Mr. Neely should be alive. This individual should be arrested, and he has to have his day in court.
Definitely needs to have his day of his own psychiatric evaluation. You get what I'm saying? Yes, you're a Marine. You were trained. You know what I mean? You should know when you're going to kill somebody. But yeah, man, this is bullcrap, bro. This is bullcrap. The guy knew what he was doing. I'm holding him more accountable because he was a Marine. He knew what he was doing. You were trained on hand-to-hand combat. You knew what you were doing, bro. You get the parade of being the hero and all that kind of stuff. There was nothing heroic about this. If anything, it was cowardly. It was cowardly. If you had an issue with them, at least knuckle up with them from the shoulders.
Charles, I think this case says something about how the public views unhoused people, how the legal system views unhoused people. I think the combination of race, the combination of mental health is also apparent here. You talk about the person who held Mr. Neely in a headlock. The police interviewed him. They released him. Why have charges not been filed?
I think, Simone, you're talking about the issue of class and race at this intersection in a city that would like to purport itself to be far more progressive and far less problematic than it is. There are a class of people in New York City who cannot afford to live in New York City. Affordable housing is an issue. Inadequate mental health services, as I've already talked about, are issues. And so what happens is, when you have these marginalized sections of our community, of our society, of our city, they are treated in many respects as second-class citizens, not only by other New Yorkers, but by law enforcement themselves. And so the amount of attention that law enforcement is going to give, absent public pressure, which is why protests, which is why social media, which is why these conversations are so important right now in order to keep the pressure on police, because absent that pressure being applied, these people will be treated like second-class citizens because there's no one to advocate for them. In a city that is literally pricing people out of places to live and places to exist, there is no one who is going to advocate for these people when you're talking about the unhoused or when you're talking about people of mental health services or in need of those services. And so that's why you're seeing this conversation linger for as long as it has, because we are allowed to treat these people as though they are marginalized as second-class citizens, and that is a big problem.
Charles Coleman, thank you so much.
I seen somebody who was holding a sign that basically said, if you're not from this community, if you're scared, first of all, don't come to this community or something like that. But it was a dope ass post, and that's all I can think about, man. If you're scared, you should probably think twice before moving to a community where there is a large number of homelessness, or what's now the new word, houselessness, where there is people who do suffer from mental health. And it's just, I'm not gonna lie to you, the only other way I can say it is that you should really probably evaluate if you want to move to a community that a community where majority is black or brown. There's no other realest way that I can say it. I can only be real like that. And it sucks, man, because if the shoe was on the other foot, somebody definitely be arrested. Somebody definitely be looking at manslaughter. I mean, the fact is a fact, man. You can't argue against that. And the fact that, melanin skin is always going to be looked at as a threat. And that's sad. Rest in peace, Jordan Neely. I appreciate everybody who was rocking with me on this video. And I'm going to get at y'all in the next one.